The audience questions have been pouring in sort of like a fire hose, and maybe not surprisingly, as we get closer to the November election, more and more of the questions relate to the election, but not all of them. The first one I got is, how much of America will refuse the coronavirus vaccine? And will this prevent us from getting to herd immunity? It's really an empirical question. It's not, I mean, we can speculate about motives and we can look at polling to figure out part of the answer, but part of this is an empirical question in terms of, will we get to that magic number that we need in order to reach herd immunity? Now, herd immunity, there's a little bit of confusion about herd immunity. There are folks who email me and I can tell that they don't realize the level of immunity to reach herd immunity depends on the disease. So if a disease is much more contagious, like for example, measles, which has an R value of somewhere between 16 and 18, I'm going from memory here. Measles is so contagious, it spreads so easily where it can be aerosolized, where you go into an elevator after someone has already left the elevator and they might have been carrying it and you could catch it. It's a huge level of contagion, far more than coronavirus or the flu. It's so contagious that you need like 95% immunity to reach herd immunity, which is why it's so important that everybody be vaccinated against measles. When the condition is less contagious, when the disease is less contagious, like coronavirus, which is more contagious than flu, but far less contagious than measles, the level of immunity required for herd immunity is lower. And the estimates are that for coronavirus, it's about 70% rather than measles is 95%, because coronavirus spreads less easily than measles. So we need to get to 70%. Now, you can get to that through a combination of naturally acquired immunity from people who have recovered from the disease and immunizations, people who have been vaccinated. Now, there's an open question as to how long you are immune after recovering from coronavirus. We don't know the answer to that yet, but hypothetically, you could get your 70% if 5% of the population has recovered naturally from coronavirus and 2/3, 66% get vaccinated. That gets you 71%. You are at herd immunity. The sad reality of the situation is that we have two polls, one from right around June 1 and one from July 1, roughly, where only about half of Americans say they plan to get the vaccine. There's an AP NORC poll from May 27, where 50% of Americans say they would get a coronavirus vaccine. And then June 30th, a different poll, which says that, again, about 50% of Americans plan to get the vaccine. Now, it's been 5 weeks since that latest poll. It's conceivable that because of the continued spread, deaths back up to 50, 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 a day, that more people are now planning to get the vaccine. Now, this is simple math. If you need 70 and half plan to get the vaccine, to get to herd immunity, that means you need an additional 20% of the country to recover naturally. 20% of the country is about 66 million people. That would imply a 660,000 person death toll, estimating roughly 1% of those who get the virus die. Now, that's the simple math. The reality is, when you look at more complex and detailed contagion models, you don't literally need 70% for this reason, and I want to try to explain this correctly. You don't come into contact with everybody in the country. So in reality, your risk of contagion is not so much about, is the country level, at a country level, do we have 70% immunity? But it's more related to what's going on in your immediate surroundings. And because we have dramatically different urban versus rural, or rural, as Trump says, situations in the United States, you probably would get a practically speaking, herd immunity somewhere short of 70%, because not the entire population is not regularly coming into contact with the entire population. You're mostly coming into contact with some limited group of people when you're going to work, when you're going to your grocery store, et cetera. And so the real number is a little short of 70%. But regardless, if only half the country plans to get the vaccine, We need 20% to get the virus in order to reach herd immunity, and that means a lot of people are going to die. That would be another 500,000 people compared to where we are right now. Very, very ugly. I hope that it's not the case. I hope people change their minds, but the polling so far is extremely disturbing. If you love feeding your intellectual curiosity, but you're always struggling to find the time, check out one of my all-time favorite apps called Blinkist. Blinkist lets you consume an entire book on your way home from work. They take thousands of popular nonfiction books, condense each one into text or audio that you can get through in just 15 minutes, and you get all of the important core ideas and information from that book. It's perfect if you don't have enough time to do all the reading you want to do, or if you just want to sample a book before you buy the entire thing. I recently read A Brief History of Time, of course, by the great Stephen Hawking. This is a book that I have been aware of for so long, and other things got in the way, and it was fantastic to check it out on Blinkist. Blinkist has books on politics, philosophy, science. They have 27 different nonfiction categories, and a subscription is only about $8 a month, and you get the entire library. But you can try it totally free and get 25% off a subscription when you go to Blinkist.com/Pakman. I've put the link right underneath this video.